In the summer of 2020, protests over the death of George Floyd were taking place across America.
Being black is not a crime! Being black is not a crime! Being black is not a crime!
The city of Rochester in upstate New York was no different. But in the midst of those demonstrations, the city was rocked by its very own scandal, the circumstances of which were strikingly similar to Floyd's death. Daniel Prude was found by police wandering the streets of the city naked and confused, clearly suffering from some kind of mental health episode. In the process of detaining the 41-year-old, officers held him down on the ground for more than 2 minutes with a hood over his head. He became unresponsive, fell unconscious, and days later was declared dead. His death was ruled a homicide.
Emotions are still running high in Rochester, New York, where Daniel Prude died after a confrontation with police back in March. Angry but peaceful protesters marched yesterday demanding action.
The decision sparking protests tonight, hundreds gathering near the scene where Prude lost consciousness.
In the last 24 hours, the release of some of the video has sparked protests.
Daniel Prude! Daniel Prude! Daniel Prude!
Like protesters all across the country, Rochester wanted reform. Prude's death became a rallying cry for a different way of policing, one in which the way authorities responded to mental health incidents like Daniel Prude's were transformed. 1 year on, Dre Johnson and Renee Brian are on the front line of this new kind of policing.
I come from a place where we would really like to see people get the proper treatment they need. Like I said, I'm from this community, and people from this community had spoken after they saw how police had treated Daniel Prude.
They're part of a pioneering person in crisis team, which sends trained professionals to 911 calls involving mental health issues in order to reduce instances of fatal police interactions.
Each day we're responding to all different kinds of calls. It might be someone who's suicidal or homicidal. It might be someone who's ran out of meds. Each crisis kind of looks different.
The reason why this team certainly came into existence was because of police responding to mental health calls. And in all fairness, police are not trained mental health professionals. They're not social workers. And the community was very clear that after some interactions that the police had with people having a mental health crisis, the community said, we want social workers to respond to those calls.
And that's no disrespect to the police. I respect what they do. When you have a situation where there's a bank robbery, I want the police there to do their job. Maybe have a situation where somebody is having a psychotic break, I want a mental health professional there to do their job. Honestly, a lot of people want accountability, and so they're saying like, boy, y'all know we want the pick team out here. We want to get the pick team. And we're like, we are the pick team. So a lot of times it's them advocating for the person who's usually their neighbor, and they're usually saying like, leave him alone, man. He got some stuff going on. We need to get the mental health team. We need a crisis team. And we're like, we have a crisis team. And they're like, oh, okay, do your thing, you know?
Sometimes the people that we serve feel uncomfortable with having the police there. They feel like whatever they're going through, they're going to get, they feel like their mental health crisis is going to lead to them being in trouble. And really, a lot of times, either the person we're serving has experienced some kind of negative interaction with the police, or someone they know, whether it's family or friend, and so they feel uncomfortable. So we're really trying to be mindful of their previous experiences and how that might impact what's going on.
The deaths of Daniel Prude and George Floyd and many others brought to the surface problems in policing that ran deep. A 96-page lawsuit brought against the city of Rochester claims the city's police department has a pervasive problem of racism, with the frequency and severity of force used by police being higher in neighborhoods with larger percentages of Black and Hispanic residents.
For it to hit home here in Rochester when we already had George Floyd going on in Minneapolis, it really struck a nerve in me. It was huge. And to actually see months later what we were marching for, what we were rallying for, what we were protesting for, come to fruition and be able to be a part of that, it literally brings chills to me just talking about it, because I'm a Black man that grew up in this community and have been stopped by police dozens of times. and have been mistreated by police dozens of times, when I know for a fact, had I been a white male, I wouldn't have been treated that way. If we're paying tax dollars to someone to protect us, and we're afraid to utilize that service, we're afraid that the protection will cause the harm or make it worse, that's an issue, and that's something that I'm glad to say that the PIG team is able to jump in when people are clearly have already been traumatized by police. They don't have people showing up with guns that are saying they're here to help. They have social workers showing up with walkie-talkies like, hey, how can we help you today?
The Person in Crisis team is still in its first year, but it's already had an impact on the city. For Johnson and Brienne and the people of Rochester, it's a way of creating a positive out of a tragic event.
I would love to see our program a part of the public safety sector. Like, I would love to see it just be the norm. 10 years from now, my kids to be growing up in a world where a Person in Crisis team exists in every city around the country, where that's just a norm. It's not some anomaly in Rochester. It's just a norm. So that's where I would love to see our program head to in 5 to 10 years.